If you've ever done any woodwork before, then you'll know that there's a difference between going with the grain of the timber as opposed to against the grain of the timber. You know, when you go against the grain of the timber, there's resistance. The timber puts in this resistance to what you're trying to do, and as you attempt to craft or shape timber and go against the grain, you just cause more damage and destruction to that piece of timber. But when you go with the grain, there's a sense of rightness to it. It doesn't destroy or damage the timber. It's easier to work when you work with the grain. See, there was a way that God intended us to live and to work in His world, under His direction, according to His purposes, with the grain, with the order of His universe. And what happens when we are saved by Jesus' death is that we are renewed, given a new self which begins to have eyes opened up to God's order and His purposes for His world. And so as we begin to understand God's purposes for His world, how He intended for it to work and to run, we then begin to work in line with the grain of His world rather than against it. We begin to craft and shape along the grain rather than against the grain. So key to dealing with frustration in our work is growing in our understanding of how God's world works best, and then working in that way with the grain. God's world works best when it runs on justice and truth, when it runs on honesty and diligence, when it runs on accuracy and loving of our neighbour and serving and seeking the interests of our neighbour before our own. Working like that is working with the grain. And I think as we work that way with the grain, some of the resistance, the frustration that comes from working against the grain dissipates.